Hello, you're listening to Slice of Anecdote. No topic is off limits in your journey through life. I am your host. My name is Harry. Today's special guest, we have Oliver. Oliver is a Hong Kong transplant currently residing in London. He is currently doing a master's in the mental health field. Welcome and thank you so much for agreeing to come on here, Oliver. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's right now it's like noon, but it's still a bit early for me for
Is
these
it?
days. Yeah,
Are you a late riser?
a little bit. Yes, I'm just doing my dissertation, but yeah,
Oh, I can't wait for you to be done because that was a nightmare for me.
I know. Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Are you almost done?
I'm not, but I will be, and that's the attitude I'm going with.
Okay, you will get it done, don't
Yeah, I
worry.
will. Yeah,
Things
yeah.
things will happen. I'm sending good love, good vibes to
Thank
you
you.
for this
It's
whole
much
nightmare.
needed.
I can relate. We met in central London and I think it was really funny how we met. We actually went to Shake Shack and then migrated to a healthier option to
We
continue our
did. Yeah.
conversation on our very
Yeah.
first chat. I think it's like called Farmers something. What is it called?
It's called Farmer J. Is it okay if we just
Yeah,
blatantly say like the names and stuff like that?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
sure.
Of course, as much as you're willing to. That's
Okay,
all.
yeah, yeah,
Our main topic of conversation that's very interesting, anecdotally,
right.
of your experience was a health scare, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. But just to preface our topic, today is about the Miller-Fisher syndrome.
Right.
But before that, I want to kind of get to know what was life like for you before this whole health scare happened.
I was just still studying, and I was basically sort of in a place where trying to focus on my academics and still progress on to the field I wanted to do. Life was decent, not, nothing to write home about, but like it was okay in London, basically. Yeah.
Was this okay? This was when you've moved from Hong Kong to London already
Yes, yes. This was like
studies. Okay.
2021, late 2021.
During this is like mid-COVID.
No, it was after, right? Oh, you know what? No, there was a resurgence at the late 2021 of COVID. So yes, there was like a whole thing with my parents coming to visit me and then roads being blocked because of the anti-vax people. But anyway, yeah, that was 2021, late.
Yeah, we'll chat a little bit about the
Sure.
whole COVID situation, about vaccinations, right?
Yeah,
Because I think you mentioned some interesting things to me when
right.
we first met. That's why I wanted you to come on here and kind of speak a little bit more about your experience.
Sure.
So I did a bit of homework just for me to fully understand what this Miller-Fisher syndrome is, short for MFS. And it's actually quite similar to GBS.
Right.
The
Mm.
I think it's pronounced as Guillain-Barré syndrome.
I
To understand MFS, we first need to understand a few other things. According to the research paper by Cabero and Morris in 2023 on MFS, it's among some of the rarest conditions that people can get. So it's a family of GBS. GBS itself affects about 1 to 2 people in every 100,000, where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks its nerves. This damage can cause weakness and numbness, often starting in the legs and sometimes moving upwards. In Miller-Fisher syndrome, MFS is a less common form of GBS, even more rare, around 1 to 2 cases per million, where MFS is known for a specific triad of symptoms, so trouble coordinating movements, problems moving the eyes, and loss of normal reflexes. This condition tends to affect men more than women, with an average onset age of around 43 years, and it's more frequently seen in Asian populations, where it may be account for 15 to 25% of GBS cases compared to about 5% in Western countries. In roughly 72% of MFS cases, there's a preceding viral infection. On average, there's about a 10-day period between the initial infection and the appearance of a neurological symptom. So, based on what I'm saying here, how does that background match up to you specifically?
I mean, I think it matched up pretty well. I especially because after when I was recovering, there was like a several months long period of recovery. I did also do some research, and it's pretty much what you
Mm.
said.
Can you take me back to the moment when you first noticed something was wrong before your diagnosis or before?
Sure. So it
Yeah.
started. I think it started either the night before the either the morning of my hospitalization or the night before that. And I was
Okay.
hospitalized late night. Let's say it was like the 7th of November, somewhere in that area of time.
Sure.
And so the night before, I think I just went to bed feeling strange, like I couldn't really put my finger on it. And then the next morning, I
Mm.
woke up and my eyes wouldn't properly line up. Like I would like when I yeah, 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 like when I'm looking at anything, it just feels like there's a really slight double. And
Okay.
yeah, and I wasn't really sure what that was, and so I wasn't really alarmed until I think early afternoon, it got more and more prominent, and then I called my GP. And for some reason,
Mhm.
they let me have an on the day appointment. It was really miraculous. Or maybe it just sounded too alarming to them. The
Right.
yeah, 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 the symptoms. And so at this point, I was still only having the issue of my eyes not really my sight being affected. Like there were no other issues at this point. I went to the GP, they did some tests, and the doctor was quite concerned, and she felt like maybe this what was some sort of a stroke, which really scared me. And she wanted me to go to a hospital to A&E to get checked immediately, which I did,
Mhm.
and that's when the panic really set in. I really vividly remember waiting for an Uber from my GP because it was getting worse at the moment. I've at the like by the second. I don't know if this is partially also because of my anxiety, but it really felt like it was getting worse. The sort of double image was getting worse and worse.
How long did your symptoms get worse? Like, is it by the day, by the hours, or like how fast did it progress?
I think like noticeably by the hour and then also by the day as well. I can take you through like the whole process to be honest, like of my hospitalization.
Please do it.
Yeah, so I went to the A&E. I was waiting at the A&E since like I think the 6 p.m. and they were arranging for me to do a brain scan, an MRI or something, and just to see if it was a stroke. And throughout this process, actually, I'll just like talk about like the process before talking about how I've been feeling, or should I do a play by play of how this happened?
However you want to share it, man.
Okay. Well, it's just that okay, they ruled out a stroke near midnight of the 7th.
Mm.
Because I mean 7th going on the 8th. And they asked me to stay in the hospital and they arranged a room for me. And I was already terrified at this point. I was just like calling friends and family just in case anything happens, they can contact them. And I went to sleep at the hospital. And then I woke up the next day, let's say the 8th, and it and it was worse. So yeah, the
Oh,
sight was worse. The double image was even more. Do you know like it's like a separation of the image, and by the second day, it was very clearly my eyes were looking in different directions, and
okay.
yeah, and I started to go my fingers. Oh, actually, sorry. the numbing of the tingling of the fingers started the night of my first hospitalization. Like I was starting to get other symptoms as well as I was getting hospitalized, and I mean admitted to the
Okay.
hospital. And at this stage, it's the site and also the tip of my fingers and also toes. They were both numb and tingly, is how I would call it.
Yeah.
And basically, this sort of worsening. The site just stayed like that for the majority of the time for my hospitalization, which mostly was like 11 days, I think, until a few months later, the March the next year, I think. So like 4 months before my sight completely came back and the nerves of my eyeballs like completely, returned to normal. And But those few days, what happened was that my fingers started to tingle and go numb, and then it spread like I'd say it feels like by the hour to slowly go up along the arm and legs towards my torso. And It got to the point where I couldn't type or use like I was pretty much paralyzed for a few days, and it was just very, very frightening because I also started to be incoherent in terms of my speech because the nerves of my tongue and throat were also attacked, and so I could barely speak or type, and it was only because like I had like a pretty close friend at that point who acted as a medium between me and my family and friends. That sort of helped out.
hmm
Yeah.
So
Right.
this was 2 days. So this was 2 days in the hospital.
By the second day, it started feeling like it's moving up, and then let's say by the fourth day, I was completely like I couldn't really move or walk. I think by the fourth day, I woke up. I wanted to go to the bathroom, and I fell on my face, and I was really yeah, because I didn't know because by the third night, I thought that like I was still oh pretty much I can walk on my own, just a little bit wobbly. And then the
Okay.
morning of the fourth day in the hospital, I just fell on my face. Like it's yeah. And
Okay.
and so it was horrifying because it just, I mean, I've never been a really active person, never really been a healthy person that partook in a lot of
So they didn't tell you like don't move, or were they trying to promote you to move more, or
at
how,
that
what was the
point,
instructions?
right, yeah, between the first and the fourth day, I think they weren't trying to ask me to move more. I think they actually realized it was MFS either the second or the third day because they still have to wait for the other symptoms to come in. And then by that point, it was quite obvious. A doctor came in doing some sort of test to my ankles, some sort of reflex test,
Okay.
and then combining with everything, and then they took a sample of spinal fluids, I think. And
Okay.
so obviously I'm still I'm a layperson, so I don't really know the scientific name for all of this, but like they pretty conclusively said it was MFS, I think, by the third day. And so they started giving me treatment, which consisted of like 5 days of some sort of medication that's like directly administered to my bloodstream. So I think a lot of it's quite I think there's not much that they could actively help me with. So a lot of care was
Okay.
supportive purely simply because
hmm
they have the medication. I was administered that medication, and how MFS works is that it takes time. So
hmm
I stayed in there for 11 days, I think. And
hmm
I was steadily recovering, I think, from the seventh or the eighth day. So, because earlier I gave a lot of details about the first to the fourth day. And so between the fourth and the eighth, this is all approximate, by the way. Like the middle few days were really horrifying. I keep talking about how scary it is
hmm
because it was terrifying. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Especially because they
I
couldn't,
can only imagine.
yeah, like especially because like the doctors couldn't really reassure me that everything's gonna come back 100%. And
That is scary.
yeah, so mainly the care they gave me was supportive. There were doctors who came in every morning, a standard check-in. and I appreciate their help. It's just that, it's very busy, so like I can't really talk to doctors except for each morning. And because there could be. Do you want to ask about certain things? What the physio was? There wasn't really a physio for me, but there was a
Oh, okay.
physio person coming in for a few days. Like
Hmm.
I wasn't allocated a course of physiotherapy, I think, but I was checked up by a physio for the few days.
What did they do with you in terms of physio? Do you
So they
remember?
basically, it was just basic mobility stuff because this would be
Hmm.
the middle to the last part of my stay at the hospital. So I was just recovering, like the treatment was just starting to work. And so
Okay.
they would basically help me get around my room and try to see what I was like, how I was progressing, that sort of thing. And
Like what you're capable of, see what kind of motor skills you have, and then try
yes,
to develop from there.
yeah, that's what they were doing, I think.
Okay. Were you on a ventilator of any sort? Were you able to breathe by
No,
yourself?
I fortunate I was. I don't even I haven't really asked them in detail, but I feel maybe I would have needed it if the medication was delayed. But I fortunately that
Okay.
wasn't needed because I was aware that that was a possibility when I was like in my on my second or third day. So like it's a lot of frantic asking for friends to tell my family, where I am or like what's happening, that sort of thing. Because I feel like I might just be intubed in a couple of days, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
It sounds like you got into the hospital, your eyes couldn't move, your fingers and your toes was starting to numb, and then it slowly crept up towards your torso by like the third or fourth day. And then it started to get better around like which day
I'd
you
say around like
noticed?
the eighth, the seventh or eighth. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did the recovery feel and what did it look like?
It was simultaneously not quite distinct, but what was very measurable was, for example, like I said, the fourth day, the morning, I fell on my face, and like I couldn't
Hmm.
even walk, not even with some sort of a I don't know what that's called in English, the one where um, you
Like
walk,
a frame?
yeah, like a walking frame, that sort of thing. Not even that.
Yeah.
But by the end of my stay, I could pretty much walk by myself just really, really slowly. So when I that's how I had to measure progress. Because a lot of the fine motor things, they came in what was lost basically, sorry. I cut myself off. But what suffered the symptoms first came back last. So my eyesight came back the last. I could have stayed in the hospital for longer, but they were like me and my family did not want to, and they also there was nothing since they have proof now that I am benefiting from the medication. It's
Mhm.
just my choice whether I want to stay or not because there's not much else they could do for me. So if I want to stay, I could.
Okay. So at this whole entire health situation, from my understanding, is that your family was not in London with
No, they
you.
weren't. No, they were in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically you're the only person that was here experiencing this whole health situation. The only person that you could rely on was a friend that you met
Yeah.
in the UK, or okay,
Yes.
wow. That must have been really scary and lonely at the same time. Like, what was going through your head emotionally, and how did it affect your family and friends around you, do you think?
I think it was just. Let me see. Sorry, it's just that like there's something I don't. I don't just try to be concise. I think there was a huge feeling of helplessness on my family's part,
Hmm.
especially because like
Hmm.
you know, uh, it's just especially when they're older. Because for me, it doesn't really matter, as long as I can see you on a screen, it doesn't really matter. I don't really feel away. But for them, it's a
Okay.
different thing. For some people, it's like, it's
Yeah.
much better if you're in the room. And so for them, it was horrifying, especially because I like to leave voice notes. And the majority of my voice notes actually pretty much during my entire stay at the hospital and for a couple of months afterwards. My speech was varying from slightly slurred to very slurred. So it
Right.
would have been a gruesome like thing for a parent to experience. I don't know if I was going to die because I didn't know what this was. And then towards the latter part of my stay and also the few months of recovery, it was more anxiety regarding whether I'm going to fully recover. Because sometimes apparently
Hmm.
people don't fully recover. And what complicates this is that a lot of people who gets MFS and GBS, they're older apparently. And
Yeah.
so there's just as far as
So
I
you're in your 20s, right?
yeah. Actually
Back
yeah.
then you were in your
Yeah,
20s.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I wish I could still say that right now. I'm still am, but anyway. The So I was in my 20s. So it's just as far as I'm aware of, even now, there's just simply isn't that much data on, for example, the lack of all of the motor functions, whether they're not returning, whether it's simply because of this syndrome or if it's because like the majority of the population who gets it is too old. There's like a similar concern about remission. I mean, I don't even know if it counts as remission
Hmm.
because majority of people are elderly who gets this. So there's a lot of unknowns, but yes, a lot of anxiety and then feeling like not really knowing whether I'm going to be mobile again. It was like this was one of the most difficult things I think that I never realized was because especially during the hardest parts uh, during my stay in the hospital and after, but especially during my stay, it was I can open my eyes, but I cannot my eyes do not focus, so they were fixed. They weren't not seeing anything, they were seeing something. But one eye was fixed on a certain distance away from my face, and then the other eye was fixed on another thing. So when I read something, I can't just put it in front of me and then read it. I have to position it, in a certain distance away from my face. I have to really make
Okay.
changes based on where my sight was focused. And so it was just everything was just a
Okay.
huge adjustment. And
Yeah, it must have been a huge like learning curve to just coordinate the space around you like through vision.
I was about to say like those few days also sort of broke my phone dependence. Like I just because
Oh,
I could not read or scroll.
that must have been such a horrible like going through time during that health scare. You aren't able to talk to your parents because you can't coordinate or like read social media, just like pass time easier. What about food during that time? Were you able to eat?
There wasn't really a lot of appetite, which I think is understandable. And the digestion was not good because the nerves also, it includes, the digestive system. And I did not eat a lot. It was just really, really clean
Hmm.
hospital food and easy to digest, mash or like bananas or yogurt or things like that. And it was a lot. I,
I bet.
yeah. Fortunately, I've never been really a foodie, so I'm good. I did lose like 10. Wait, how much did I lose? I lost a lot of weight during my stay, and I'm not sure if it was just because of anxiety or something else, but I lost a lot of weight.
Is that the positive? Is that the positive you wanted to talk about?
No, no, it's just I know I think there were a lot of positives that's not like directly related to this syndrome. It's more to do with the recovery and the feeling of,
Mm.
really wanting to live a healthier life, but not about the losing weight. That part I'm good with.
So, yeah, I want to dive in a little bit about the treatments or the
Right.
rehab methods that was particularly effective during your recovery. Like, what sticks out to you the most other than the medication?
Well, I do want to say that this would, because like I said before, it was very supportive mostly. So
Hmm.
there wouldn't be a lot of like officially like allocated or prescribed treatment, or at all, not even just a lot.
Okay.
It was just basically that course of the 5 days of medication that I can't remember the name of. Apparently, it's either that or a blood transfusion of some sort. But anyway, uh, what really helped I'd say what really helped my experience was the attitude of the healthcare providers. Is that what you call it?
Okay.
They were,
Hmm.
it was very good care in terms of like a mental health perspective from people who I assume would have had training but not specialized in mental health care. So I think that was really helpful.
I'm happy to hear that because as healthcare professionals, we want to be able to get people treated and get better as much as they can. But there's another side of things when there isn't much for us to do. We want to be able to provide as much support as we can, um, with, the right attitude and try to be optimistic for the patient and just provide whatever support that they need at the moment to make them feel more comfortable is usually how we do things.
I just want to briefly go on a little rant where
Go for it.
like other institutions in my life at that point, they weren't very kind. I basically, long story
Mhm.
short, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this to you off, recording when we met, but I had to be, I basically had to, I was kicked out of the student accommodation. Not really kicked out, but long story short, the policy for a lot of uni accommodations is that you have to be a full-time student to live there. And so I get that. It's
Okay.
just that I when there was a oh yeah, right. So this is also more about the recovery period. After I left the hospital, there were a few months where I was not 100%, I wasn't even 70% in terms of motor functions and stuff like that. So I
Hmm.
really needed to not move around, and I was like asking if it's okay if I can pay even more, like continuing like just to stay here for a few months, refused. And that was just really really hurtful, and that also includes the well-being service counseling from the university. So literally like every resource from the university was taken away right when I needed it the most. And so it was just really,
That is so stupid.
that is
So
extremely
sad.
stupid. And I know it was not like malicious, but it was really hard.
They just care about the money, right? Like they just care about
Yeah, they
the
really
money part
do.
of like your attendance and like, oh, this is our policy. We can't do
The thing
anything.
is, I know,
Um,
yeah, but it's so ridiculous because I know that it's policy, and I'm saying, hey, can I keep paying for the accommodation, and even I don't know, like pay more because I really, really need it, like just to rest, and they wouldn't. And it's one of those things where it's so unfair, but it's just how it's set up.
which uni was this?
It's okay. It's already they're already under a lot of financial trouble. Let's just say that.
Okay.
20
Did the doctors try to give you doctor's notes and try to like help you with your case, with whatever
Right,
it is that you needed to like help
they
you recover?
did. They did, but it was of no
Mm,
help, and, just because simply it wasn't they can give advice, but they can't really do anything about it,
of course, yeah, they can't
and
enforce it. From November 7th all the way to when do you feel like you have mostly recovered? Like back to 100%?
okay, I actually think I wouldn't say 100%. So the eyesight came back, I think May. Sorry, no, 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 not May, March. I think March, yes. And,
Okay.
but before that, a lot of my motor function, let's say I was at 30%, like I can wobble and walk. It was very slow, yes. And then
Okay.
I'll say that around like February is when I suddenly, towards the end, there were like a few occasions where there were suddenly like leaps and bounds of feeling recovered. Yeah.
Hmm.
So like motor functions mostly recovered, to be honest, by the time like early March. My eyesight was what concerned me the most, just because it was a huge issue. Even though I could also feel like they're more mobile than when they were completely stuck in place. Um,
Did they ever tell you to move more when you leave the hospital to speed up recovery or take certain medications to help or help with diets or anything like that? Or it was just on you go live your life and you'll slowly recover?
I don't recall perfectly, but I think it was the latter. I think they were just like, okay, at this point, you should make a like there was like some sort of a projection by the
Mm,
leading expert on this. because there was one person like this at the hospital I was at, and he was just saying that like he expects me to make a full recovery, and there's not much I can do.
Let's just segue into a little bit of differently. If you were back in Hong Kong and if this incident happened, do you think your experience would be any different compared to the UK?
I think, to be honest, I think I would have recovered less well. In terms of free healthcare, no, I don't think so. I think the care I received at the hospital here was very good. That I only expect, I think, if I were in Hong Kong to be able to access with private healthcare. So with like a private
Mm.
hospital. So yeah.
How are you practicing gratitude from this experience? I'm still trying to explore that part of my life where being thankful and being lucky and practicing gratitude to certain things that I have in life. It's easy to say it that you are thankful and be thankful about these things, but I also think, how does one demonstrate it? Is there something that you're doing differently that you are practicing? Think, how does one demonstrate it? Is there something that you're doing differently that you are practicing those things?
It's just that the term gratitude, it's just very easy from someone from a really, really Christian background, which my family is from, to sort of externalize good things and be grateful, not just be grateful, but be grateful to like a specific figure or something that's way less personal than just a general gratitude to life. So it's something that I still straddle and just try not to think too much about. I feel great. I feel gratitude, but it's more of like a I'm happy that I'm still here, that sort of thing.
Did you think you were going to die at any point in that experience?
Just like the first like couple of because they didn't know if it was a stroke. Like it would were like a stroke, it would have been,
Mm.
horrible. But yeah, I don't know.
That is very scary, just because if the doctors don't know what it is and like you're just randomly having these symptoms, and
Yeah.
especially when you're in a foreign country where your family isn't here, your loved one isn't here, and like you basically know nobody, right? Because I because when I moved here, I was like, I could collapse and no one would know in my apartment. You know what I mean? Because like you're living by yourself, unless your classmates would notice that you haven't been to class with no communication. They would start to like where what you have been up to like a week later. By then, a lot of bad things could happen. So
I am
it's
yeah.
quite scary.
I am grateful. I do want to say I am grateful for my friends who were there. It was just like it was just a very conflicting like thing, but I was grateful for people who helped me back then.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for joining. And that's a wrap on this episode of Slice of Anecdote. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. Leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next episode. Thank you for listening. I will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.